Hi, my name's Jan. I'm an alcoholic. Um, I always find it easy to start like that because it means I can sort of speak freely, I guess. Um, yeah, this is my sort of main share, as it were, my sort of main journey with alcohol, my experience, strength, and hope with um, what happened to me, and how I can how I got better, and how I can hopefully, share my experience to help others to along their path and their journey. Yeah, the start. Basically, my parents, my mum and dad, were well. My dad was definitely a big drinker. He was very much a sort of party person. People would come round. The wine would come out no matter what time of day. It was always like, oh, let's go down the pub, or drink was a major, major part of our childhood. And my my family were very rich, sort of when I was a lot younger, and my parents were still together. But my parents got divorced when I must have been about 10 or so, and it was a epically, epically awful divorce, and it really affected me in a lot of ways, which I didn't realise at the time. I mean, it was a horrible time to go through. Um, Me and my sister stayed with my dad, and my brother went off with my mum. And my brother was a lot younger. He would come and visit, but me and my sister stayed with dad, and he sort of later remarried, and the situation in the home was pretty horrible. I don't have that many memories of that time because I it was a lot of like negative feelings that I don't really want to associate with. So I left home quite early. I sort of went off to university. It was like a lifeline to me. Um, I didn't complete my university course. I stayed for like 2 years, mostly because I was drinking quite heavily, um, just to escape the turmoil. Really, I just didn't understand very well what had happened, and I didn't feel happy with who I was. I didn't really consciously think these things, to be honest. I knew that when I drank, I didn't feel as much, and I didn't have all these thoughts in my head. Um, and I never used to constantly think about the past or that sort of thing, but I used to feel exhausted with everything going through my head, sort of like, how do I behave? Who am I? Like, I'm anxious. Why is everyone more successful? Why is other people seem to be able to, you know, look nice, dress nice, and they're really clever, and everyone else on my course knew what they were doing, and I didn't have a clue. I was, you know, I constantly felt like I was going to be found out. Somebody was going to come up to me and sort of say, "Oh, Jan, we've realised that you're not really suitable for human life." So yeah, we'd like you to leave now, please. Everyone else is doing very well, and you're just failing completely. And I had that sort of conscious constant anxiety that was going to happen, which is really bizarre. Because I knew that in reality, I knew logically that was unlikely. But I couldn't. That was kind of how the way I felt, really. And I'd drink a lot to sort of mask this, and because when I had a drink, it was like a kind of warm glow sort of took over, and all of these thoughts suddenly went right down, and suddenly I was actually fitting in. I was the life and soul of the party. Everything was happy. um it was great. Everyone, parties. There was nothing to worry about when I was drinking. um when I was actively, having a drink, and everything was so much more relaxed and fun. And it was just, I was constantly thinking about, when am I going to get back into that state again where nothing matters? I don't have to put effort into, living this life which I felt incapable of. I just didn't really know where to start. I thought it was such a mammoth task to me, the idea of, becoming a regular person, or like just being accepted in life, that the idea of trying to do that was massively overwhelming. So I just have a drink, and yeah, it was like an automatic go-to thing. um and I was the sort of person, I'd sort of go into a party and it would be like, where's the alcohol? And I would get very tetchy if I couldn't, if say people are chatting, they, especially with women, I've noticed. This might be sexist. I hope not. I don't mean it to be, but like, especially my girlfriends, I'd go round to one of their houses for the evening, and you'd be thinking, oh, nice, and I'd take a few bottles of wine, and I'd obviously give some wine to the host, and then she would like put the wine down in the kitchen, then come back out and start chatting to me about like, oh, how are you, Jan? And I'll be like, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? But in my mind is screaming, when are you going to open that wine? You crazy bitch! Why are we sitting here with no wine? It was really stressful. So, and I wasn't really present for any of my friends or family or anybody. Because of that constant, like, I need to have that to feel like I'm fitting in. Um, and to feel like people like me, and to feel, that, because that really mattered to me, whether people like me or not. um so yeah, it was really difficult. It was horrible, and it just kind of went on like that, and gradually things just got worse, and because I couldn't deal with any situations that used to come up, um obviously situations would compound, one on top of another, and gradually life got worse and worse. Like, I was being sort of harassed by my sister's ex-boyfriend. Very long story, but for some reason he blamed me for the breakup of the partnership with my sister, and yeah, and because I didn't deal with it very well, I'd sort of tried to go to the police, but nothing was really happening. I would, that was another reason to drink. Not that I needed a reason at all, but in my mind it was. Um, and I moved house into a smaller house so that he didn't know where I was, and eventually I got caught drinking and driving, which I thought would never happen, because I'd drunk and drove my whole life, which I'm, deeply ashamed of. I mean, thank God I never hurt anybody, because I don't think I would be able to live with myself if that had happened. Um, but anyway, I crashed my car into a hedge, and had my license taken away. And because of that, I couldn't work. So, like, sort of gradually these things all added up to just kind of, I was not working, living in a tiny flat. I didn't have a relationship because that had finished. Um, and yeah, it was gradually, and I didn't really realize how my life had kind of got into this big spiral of nothingness. And the only thing that made me happy was going down the pub and having a drink. So I just used to do that, and I suddenly, it was strange because a lot of people say they hit rock bottom and then they come into AA, like a big event will happen. Um, but for me, it wasn't like that. It was, I just I woke up one morning and just thought, if I don't change something, it was kind of like a weird epiphany, but there wasn't any shining light or, you know, Jesus figure or anything like that. It was just a thought in my mind, which was, I looked around my little bed sit and thought, I think I was just over 40 at the time. Yeah, I would have been like, sort of early 40s. And I thought, I've not got anything in life. I've not got anything of like monetary value. I've not got relationships or whatever. All I've got is this complete facade of who I am, like like a Jan that I used to show everybody. That and that Jan was happy, like everything was fine, and that's what everybody thought. They didn't see the real, what was actually going on. Um, and so that was all I had in life. I didn't have anything, and it was very sad. And I suddenly had this realization. I thought, if I don't change something, I'm going to just die like this. And I was so cripplingly, is that a word? I don't know, whatever. I was very depressed. Very depressed and very anxious. I used to wake up in the middle of the night, like about 2 a.m. I'd fall into bed, whatever time, and always wake up a few hours later, just with this dread and anxiety and self hatred and just these feelings of I want to kill myself, but I was too lazy to do it. And then I thought, oh, it's a good thing I am too lazy, but yeah, that's one thing I don't want taken away, my laziness, because I think it saved my life. I really do. Um, but then, so I'd lie in bed for a couple of hours, like with these dreadful feelings and this voice of self hatred and, just general crippling hatred. And I would eventually fall back to sleep and wake up the next morning, um, feeling awful, not really hungover because I was so used to drinking a lot that, I never really had a non hungover state to compare it to, if you know what I mean. Um, and yeah, I'd get up, sort of do a few things, and then just, have a glass of wine or go down the pub or, but that was my day of like non existence, really. It was pretty much a wasted life, and it would have carried on being a wasted life um, if I hadn't decided one day, just to, I thought, well, I really have nothing to lose at all. I and I'd heard of AA. I didn't know much about AA, but I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. I'll go to a meeting, and it's weird because a lot of people say they're very nervous going to AA meetings, and like they they're scared of like meeting new people. But I literally felt like I had nothing to lose. I was like, well, how bad can it be? It can't possibly be any worse than my life at the moment. So I kind of just wandered in there, and introduced myself, and all of a sudden I met all these people that were just like me, and they were talking about the stuff that I had only ever kept in my head. I'd never shared with anybody else. And I thought everybody else in the world was functioning and they were doing fine, and it was only me that had these issues. Um, but then all of a sudden, when I joined AA, I realised that I wasn't the only one. And the first word of the 12 steps is we. It's like, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. And and all of a sudden I was part of a group, rather than just I individually sort of like trying to stop drinking. It was a group of us and everybody is invested in everybody else's like journey and their welfare and everything. And yeah, I sort of went to meetings, got a sponsor, did the steps, um, and yeah, I didn't since I came through the door. I haven't drunk since, and that was over 5 years ago now. I came to AA in January 2020, January the 20th, I think is my, yeah, pretty sure January the 20th, 2020. Well, that's weird. I never realised that before. Um, anyway, yeah, I came into AA on that day, and yeah, haven't drunk since. So it's just a miracle, I think. And I would I would like to help people to stop drinking and achieve that for themselves, because not the only the, the main miracle for me is the fact that I stopped thinking about drinking, and the fact that I my outview of myself completely changed. From that day onward, I never woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning with that like self hatred, that anxiety, that dread. All that stopped. And admittedly, I did think that my life was suddenly going to become transformed into this, successful entrepreneur with like sports cars and living in a mansion and all this sort of stuff. It hasn't, like FYI, that has not happened. But yeah, I have a purpose now, which I never had before, and my life has definitely built up from where it was then. I have a beautiful flat. I've got a relationship which I'm really happy in. Car, like, I always feel safe driving in my car. um and I never wake up sort of wondering what I've said to people or what I've done, or like with that sort of like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. That what would you call it? I don't know, just self, yeah, massive self hatred was a word I would use. So I just feel very, very blessed to have this life now, and not the constant thinking about like, when are we going to get a drink? When's the wine going to come out? I can go to parties and um, pubs and do all the things that I used to do, um, and yeah, actually enjoy them. I mean, I don't. To be fair, the only reason that I don't go to sort of parties and pubs for too long, I'll go for a couple of hours and like have a great time and chat to people, and then usually leave. And the reason is because everybody else sort of gets really drunk, and then they get really repetitive and boring. Um, I don't know, and it's strange seeing it from this side. It's like this side of the fence. Um, how just boring drunk people can be, and just like they'll hug you and slobber all over you, and oh, I love you, Jan, and you're just like, oh God. Yes, I'm definitely leaving, it's time to leave, and they'll tell the same stories like over and over, and like the same jokes, and it's just like hysterical. But I used to be like that, and I think, oh my God, I used to be this person. I used to think that I was so funny and so amazing when I'd had a drink, you know um and I used to think that, I mean, sober people to me were like, um, I just didn't understand them at all. And I thought they were super. I thought, God, don't drink. You must be so boring. Like, what on earth do you do? I think, what do they do in the evenings? And do they just climb into a box and like cease to exist? And like, but in my sobriety, I can honestly say I've done so much more with my life than I ever did when I was drinking. Um, and my friends are like, I just love my friends so much. They're so much more sincere, and um, I have genuine friendships now, and people that I'm not afraid to call and say, oh God, this has happened, and I'll tell them exactly what's happened and exactly what my thought process is, which I'd never do before. I'd always pretend that everything was fine, and yes, Jan's coping beautifully, and like, what do you mean a problem? But now I've got real friends that I feel safe to express how I'm feeling. So it really is like night and day. There's probably more to my life story which I've missed out. Of course there is. There's lots more. I had a daughter for a start, so that's a major, major thing. Um, she's beautiful. I love her to bits. And yeah, sort of lots of things have happened in my life, but that's my main kind of arc way. Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, that's my main sort of life with the drinking. And yeah, sort of, and now going forward, I just want to be able to help other people to take those steps as well, and do that journey, and just go from, to me, it's moving from that feeling of the anxiety and dread and loathing, the self-loathing, to like the feeling of it's okay to be me. Actually, I quite like being me. I'm quite happy. I'm a unique, crazy individual, and I like other people for their uniqueness, and um, just being able to be authentic is to be able to live authentically as who you are. I think that is, it's just the greatest gift, and not to need that drink, not to, and not to even think about it anymore. I go into pubs and surrounded by people that drink all the time, and I honestly thought when I first joined AA that my life would be a misery of just like wanting to drink but not being able to. But that really couldn't be further from the truth. I'm surrounded by people that drink alcohol, but have no inclination whatsoever to join them, because I know that when I drank, it just, it didn't give me anything. It just kind of, it pretended to give me loads of stuff, but it secretly took it all away, and made my life just a grey, dull line of crap. And I would have eventually died, and yeah, well, we all will, unfortunately. But that's I won't start muttering on about that. But anyway, if you would like some help stopping drinking, please, yeah, take check out the links below the videos and stuff. I do coaching, and I have written a book which is called the first 30 days, which is about like the first 30 days of sobriety and how to sort of navigate the changes and that sort of thing, and just a bit of guidance and help about the things that help me. So yeah, check it out. It's available on Amazon. Links below. And yeah, thanks for watching this video, and see you all soon.